Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
As we head towards colder weather, it's important to make sure you're up to date on vaccinations and protected from COVID-19. The Native American Community Clinic is now administering the updated Pfizer bivalent booster. The updated bivalent booster helps protect against the original COVID-19 strain and against newer Omicron variants. And it will help restore protection that has decreased since previous vaccinations. People aged 12 and older are now recommended to get an updated bivalent booster dose at least 2 months after their last COVID-19 shot. That means the bivalent booster may be given after a person's primary series or after their last booster shot, regardless of what brand you received before. Even if you've already had COVID-19, you should get vaccinated. Right now, at the Native American Community Clinic, you can get COVID-19 vaccines, including updated boosters, at the same visit as other vaccines. However, if you've received a recent monkeypox vaccine, you may need to wait 4 weeks before you can get a COVID-19 vaccine, and you should discuss this with your provider. Schedule your vaccination appointment with the Native American Community Clinic by calling 612-872-8086.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick. Will you clear tonight with frost possible and a low of 33, then cloudy on Saturday with a high of 62. The locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oils and vinegars since 2009. That's Vinaigrette, Xerxes Avenue and 50th Street in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local and national Native news and events, and as you know, Okama, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, and this portion of the show is brought to you by MN 350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Hey, we got State Senator Mary Kunesh on a little later, and we talk about news that you don't hear anywhere else. Ogama, I don't know if you know this, but Bernie Sanders was in town rallying up the troops for Keith Ellison and many other politicians. That's University of Minnesota. I was not able to find a parking spot because you know how hard it is to park by the U. But
yeah,
well, I could have Ubered, I guess, but so it's firing. We have to fire up the troops because, as you know, we outnumber the Republicans, and we need to engage all our relatives out there to get out and vote. And the people that they have up against the other candidates, the Democratic candidates, are ridiculous. And so let's get out there and save democracy. And without any further ado, let's get with Ogama with the news that you don't hear anywhere else.
Absolutely. And speaking about getting our voice out there and taking the time to get involved in our civic communities, you definitely want to consider that we're living in a really critical time as Native people. Climate chaos and corporations that would have us believe that climate chaos is not a problem are threatening native land and water for everyone and our communities. But we have the power to stand together, or we have the power when we stand together. So, Make Voting a Tradition is a project for the Native American Community Development Institute, or NACD. And we have Robert Lilligren on every Thursday, and they're building power for Native people through their Make Voting a Tradition project. They're mobilizing multi generational historic turnout of Native voters in Minnesota to make sure that our voices are heard. So, make sure if you have not yet, go to nacdi.org/make voting a tradition. And there's a dash between each word. So it's nacdi.org/make voting a tradition. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure it'll come up. Also, if you just go to nacdi.org, there's a little tab in the upper right hand corner of NACD's page that says Make Voting a Tradition, and you can just click there. But they have really awesome social media stuff that you can utilize. They can tell you about voting initiatives. They can help you get educated and get informed to make good voting decisions in your communities and make sure that your voice is heard. So that is something that I wanted to uplift. And then while we're on the subject of NACD, I also want to uplift that Rosie Sima's dance, She Who Lives on the Road to War, which is a production, an artistic dance production, and an immersive installation, has just gone into the Native American Community Development's All My Relations Art Gallery. It opened last night, October 6th, and runs through December 15th, 2022. However, because there are in-gallery performances, there are a very limited number of in-person performances between now and December 15th. So you're going to want to go to allmyrelationsarts.com to reserve your seating to see She Who Lives on the Road to War. I might try to make a trip down there for that one. That one looks really exciting. How about you, Robert?
Hey, I was there last night, and I saw 4 people that heard it on the show that stopped by, so, that was really exciting to see them,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and, very awkward too because I don't think I'm a celebrity. I do think I'm a legend in my own mind, but that's my own mind, but, when people come up like they did at the fair and, public places and recognize my voice. They always ask about Ogama, where is she around? And I'm going, no, she's not. She's up in Bemidji. She's up in the deep north. But it's always startling and also humbling.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And to anybody that's run into Robert and wondering where I am, yes, I do hide up here, not in the metro area. So if I do make it down to the metro area, I'll make sure to try to put an alert on my social media to let you all know that I'm coming down there. Um, Awesome things happening. A lot of people all throughout Turtle Island are really getting geared up for Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, instead of Captain Colonizer Day. So pretty excited about that. There's a lot of events happening locally in the Twin Cities, but also a pretty interesting event that's happening in Chicago. So I'm going to touch base on what's going on in St. Paul, and at the U of M, and we'll also touch base on an event in Chicago here really quick. In St. Paul, there's going to be an Indigenous Peoples Day parade Monday, October 10th from 10:15 a.m., or excuse me, starting at 10:15 a.m. at 1109 Margaret Street in St. Paul. They're asking if you want to walk with the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center. They're asking everybody to come, and if you want to dress up as your own version of a Restastic superhero sent to honor and protect our first Mother Earth. And it says, Aunties and Uncles Unite. It's probably one of the better posters I've ever seen. Ever. It came through the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe Urban Office this morning, and pretty excited about that. But yeah, so the Margaret Park is the name of the location, starting at between 10:15 and 11 a.m. The parade route will begin at Margaret Park and end at Indian Mounds Park, where they will continue the celebration for Indigenous Peoples Day in St. Paul. Down in Chicago, the American Indian Center of Chicago is hosting their 69th annual powwow at Schiller Park Woods Forest Preserve in Chicago. It'll happen Friday through Sunday, and there's a lot of specialty and contest dances, food vendors, craft vendors. People can all join them. And then at the U of M, there's also an Indigenous Peoples Day event at the American Indian Student Cultural Center at the U of M. There will be a pop-up round dance at 4:30 at the Northrop Mall at the U of M on Monday, October 10th as well. So, Robert, what are your plans for the Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday?
Well, I'm going to make it to the U before the show, and I think I'm doing a pre-record on Monday. Because everybody's gonna be running around. I mean, there's things happening at the night too, like Tawani's having a big together. They do every year a fundraiser.
Yes. Yep, the
And then,
Tawahi Circle of Generosity event, I believe. Is that what it is?
yeah, and then
Tawahi.
I will definitely be at the parade. And there's many groups, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people that do that march in St. Paul. It starts right by American Indian Magnet School and goes down, like you said, to the Indian Mounds Park. I'll be going there and hanging out, and that's always a good time. You see a lot of people in the community, and Minneapolis and St. Paul come to that one. So, and I'll probably swing by the U real quick, do a quick round dance, and make sure I don't hurt my knee, and take it from there.
Yeah, so if you're looking for something to do this weekend before all of the events happen for Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, there's also the Indigenous Peoples Weekend Basketball Expo starting this weekend at Harding High School. It starts, tomorrow at 10 a.m. They're going to have 10 to 12. There's going to be youth basketball skills camp for kids in age 4th through 8th grade. They'll have an MMIW panel, including Mary Kunesh, who's on with us tonight, from 12 to 1. And then from 1 to 6, Nini Janis, MMIW 3x3 high school and adult co-ed brackets for basketball are going to be happening. 6 to 6:30 is going to be award ceremony. They have prizes they're giving away for the 3-on-3 games. They're going to have a Famous Dave's community feast just before 7. And then community performances are happening from 7 to 8. So if you want to find out more, go to Linktree/Indigenous Peoples Weekend. And then on Monday, make sure, and I'm sure Mary Kunesh will talk about that, but make sure to check out Tawahi Foundation to give as part of their Circle of Generosity to support Indigenous leadership.
Also, a big concert over by Unami Saturday, 1 to 6. We'll be right back after this short break. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents. I'm Awake.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
Hey, this portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, I just wanted to touch base too. At Owami tomorrow, it's called Falling Water Festival. Corey Medina will be there, the Pretendians, Spirit Boy Singers, and Sampson Brothers, emceeing by Deanna Standing Cloud. So I talked to her about that. It's going to be fun. Concerts, it's free, and it's for the whole family. And hey, we have State Senator Mary Kunesh on right now. And we were just talking about you. I don't know if you're hearing what we're talking about, but sounds like you have a busy day tomorrow.
Yeah, I do. How did you know that?
Well, we do the news here, so we read posters and things all over Turtle Island, and we've been promoting that basketball tournament at my old school where I taught Harding for a week or so. So I do listen to the show.
Yeah, I get to go to a early morning, 10 o'clock morning fundraiser tomorrow, and then over to that, and I hope to get down to Owami, taste some of the good food down there, and see all the fun activities, see who I run into.
Yeah, and then you're doing the basketball thing, aren't you? What are you doing there exactly?
That's right. That's right in the middle. So that is really cool. I was invited by Brooke LaFoe to join them tomorrow, and it is to recognize the Indigenous Peoples Week that's coming up, Indigenous Peoples Day that starts on Monday. And so this is the inaugural Indigenous Peoples Weekend of Basketball Expo. And it's being held all day on October 8th, which is tomorrow, at Harding High School in St. Paul. And in the afternoon, they are holding a panel on missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so I will be there. I believe Dr. Stately will be joining us. Juliette Rudy, who is the executive director of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Office here in Minnesota, will be there. And it'll just be an opportunity for us to talk about the work that we've done, the work that we're doing. And of course, with Dr. Stately there, he is the medical director, the doctors for, so many of our community members, because he has the clinic over on Franklin Avenue. And those who are listening, Franklin Avenue is like the avenue of all of our center of our Indian community, our urban Indian community here in Minneapolis. So we have the Minnesota Indian Center there. We have the clinic. We've got Indian-owned bank, tribal bank, just all kinds of different businesses, Native businesses and organizations. Women's Resource Center is there, not too far from there. So it's sort of the core, the hub of the Indian urban community here in the Twin Cities. And so Dr. Stately, he has his thumb on the pulse of this community and provides the healthcare for so many that it's so vital.
Yeah, definitely. And he's on our show every Monday. He stars.
Oh, that's great. Yep.
Dr. Stately, the CEO of Native American Community Clinic. And then we also on Thursdays have Robert Lilligren, who's kind of the mayor of Franklin Avenue. So we cover the corridor a lot.
He's been around for so long and has been doing the really, really good work of making sure that resources are coming to the community and that they're being used in such a good way. And so, he's another one of those that has his thumb on the pulse. But Juliette Rudy is, as I said, she's the director of the first in the nation Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Office. And we have it here in Minnesota. It is the result of our task force. It was the #1 recommendation that came out of that report. And really excited to have her there tomorrow because she comes at it from kind of a different perspective in the fact that she actually was like a police officer at one time and rose to pretty high, level of command. And so she has that experience that comes not only from a woman who is Native American, but her family has had, kind of experiences with the missing and murdered, personally. She is a member of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, and we're just so excited. She's been doing a lot of really good work. Her 30 years in public safety is really valuable to it. And now that she retired, she decided that this would be the way for her to focus on the office and wants to mandate as many of the mandates recommendations that we put forward in that report. And she's just a delightful person on top of it. And so I'm really excited to sit with her tomorrow when we have this forum.
Are you going to Tawahi on Monday night?
Oh yeah, I'll be at the Tiwahe event. Tiwahe is, for those who are listening, means family in Lakota, and it is a grant-based organization where we give out direct grants to urban Indians. So if you need a pair of steel-toe work boots, and you're just starting out and you don't have the money for it, if you need some help with your educational expenses, we have granted dollars to buy a used car to an elder so that she could take her kids back to the Dakotas for ceremony and powwow in the summertime. Just a plethora of grants that have gone out. Those for drummers to get the products, the things that they need to make their drums or beating. So we really look at the individual and how we can make that difference in real time and not make them jump through a lot of hoops, not make them, prove that they spent every penny, in the way that they said they would, because we're going to trust them to do that. Sometimes people don't get it done in the time frame that they thought they would, but the success rate, and we hear from so many of the grantees of, just the fact that we recognize that they took a minute and asked for some help, and we were able to supply that. So we have a big gala event on Monday night, Indigenous Peoples Day, at the Minnesota History Center. It's going to be, it should be pretty great event, and I'm excited to do that.
Yeah, we usually get invited to that, and I know that we talked about Brooke. She was a past recipient, and Tall Paul was a past recipient, and I know I'm not sure if Ogama did, but during COVID they helped. You guys helped our show out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. And we've got Angela Vig here, who's the owner of Vig Guitars in the Twin Cities, saying she was a recipient as well, and it was really helpful. So shout out to you, Angie, for putting that in. If you guys don't know, Vig Guitars is a Native-owned guitar shop, so check them out.
Right on Snelling Avenue, right on the way to the fair from my house.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
Yeah. And on top of the Tiwahe event in the evening, there's the parade in the early. What time does that start? 11?
Yes. Yep. 10:15. They're asking people to arrive for MIWRC, but 11 o'clock looks like when it's gonna take off.
Yep. So I'll be there for that, and then there's always the sunrise service at on the beach at Bade Makaska. It's
really?
at the Tom. Have you never been there, Robert?
Yeah, I didn't know it was on. I've been there, and I it was during COVID, so I wasn't. It must have. I didn't realize it was during Native Indigenous Day?
It's usually on Indigenous Day. On the I think it's called Thomas Beach, and it's a beautiful experience. If you can make it over there, you should. It's lots of folks gather. It's still dark, and the LaPlante family are there to do the blessing, and then folks just gather and we smudge and listen to prayer and listen to song and drum, and it's a great way to start our Indigenous Peoples Month for sure. So I have a really busy day on Monday.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Wow, that's crazy. Hey, Mary, we're gonna take a break here soon, but it's an amazing thing what you do for the people, and you are one of the politicians I think that they know will support things, and they ask you to do things because there's a lot of politicians, and I see you stepping up for a lot of things, and I just want to say Pinagigi because it's noticed here because I try to make those, and you're there too.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my honor to tell you the truth.
Right on. Hey, we'll be back with State Senator Mary Kunesh. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this short message. Please stay with us.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Hi, this is Desi Doyen of the Green News Report and the Broadcast. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Join Quorum as they celebrate their 29th annual National Coming Out Day luncheon presented by U.S. Bank. This inspirational and transformational luncheon gives voice to the power of living openly, honestly, and with authenticity at work, in our families, in our faith communities, and across our lives. The realities of living an authentic life are deeper than being out. We all have many layers of identity, and we must work together to create a world where people can bring their whole self to everything they do. The National Coming Out Day Luncheon serves as a celebration of who we are individually and together. Reserve your tickets today for Friday, October 14th. This year's National Coming Out Day Luncheon will be at the Hyatt Regency Hotel at 1300 Nicollet Mall in Minneapolis. The Marketplace Expo opens at 10 a.m. and the luncheon will begin at 11:45. Tickets are available for members for $75 or non-members for $90. Learn more and purchase your tickets in the event section at TwinCitiesQuorum.com. That's TwinCitiesQuorum.com.
Electricity costs have hit historic highs, and they're likely to continue rising with no end in sight. If you own a business, those are costs that are eating away at your bottom line. But switching to All Energy Solar can help you see green instead of red. A system from All Energy Solar offers a bankable investment with energy costs that won't rise along with fossil fuels. So stop renting your energy from the utility company because the rent keeps going up. Solar tax incentives are strong, returning up to 60% of your investment. But those credits will decrease in 2023. And with more businesses switching to solar, capacity is limited. That's why reserving your spot on the grid now has never been more critical. All Energy Solar has the experience of installing over 6,000 systems for all sorts of properties in the Midwest and beyond. Get a free no-obligation assessment from All Energy Solar's commercial solar specialists today by calling 800-620-3370 or visiting allenergysolar.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick. Will clear tonight with frost possible and a low of 33, then cloudy on Saturday with a high of 62.
I'm Angela Warner, and my grandpa Jim Warner taught us to treat customers like family. And to thank you for 68 years, Warner Stellian is offering unbeatable appliance savings. Go to warnerstellian.com for a $50 exclusive coupon.
This is Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm Awake.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
Hey, this portion of the show is brought to you, I'm just going to say, by Native Roots Radio. For those of you who are listening and may have just tuned in, Native Roots Radio has a Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/Native Roots Radio Network, we would really appreciate any support you might be willing to give us so that we can keep covering awesome news and events and having such wonderful guests on our show. Again, that's Native Roots Radio on Patreon at patreon.com/Native Roots Radio Network.
Hey, and thanks for bringing that up, Ogama, because we have over 40. It fluctuates steady people donating monthly. And I just want to say a big Pinigigi thank you. You guys really helped us, one, through COVID when advertising and businesses. And I mean, it's kind of a dream, Ogama, that all went down, that the whole country shut down. I mean, we lived through that, but it's like, wow, it really did. And people's stores closed, and a lot of our advertisers had to stop advertising. So I just want to give all those people that have stuck with us and supported us a big Pinigigi thank you.
Absolutely. I agree. Chi Miigwech to you who've stuck around to support us, and Miigwech in advance for those of you that are going to take the time to sign up. You know, if you send Native Roots Radio just 25 cents a day, that adds up to a little over $90 a year, which makes a difference for us in a big way. So just something to think about.
Right on. And I just, I just want to also, while we're giving out shout outs here, I just want to give we're on Civic Media Network all over the nation, and we've picked up another couple of stations, and we're over 40 stations across the country, live in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois. So just a great shout out to Civic Media Network for allowing us to be in their family. So I just want to say another big Pinigigi. Speaking of huge Pinigigis, we have State Senator Mary Kunesh here, who was what we'd like to. I like to talk about history. You were our breakthrough guest, and I don't remember talking to you about coming on the show. And you were even on the show when we were just on Saturdays for 2 hours, and you would send us a report even when you were on vacation, and that was amazing. And you kind of broke down the door, and a lot of people. Well, if Mary Kunesh was crazy enough to be on the show, I think I could be too. So I want to give thank you too, and we'll always be indebted for you on that.
For sure. This was the progression of this radio station has been so valuable to the Native community and to the general community, as well. I think we've been able to demystify a lot of issues of legislation, of what an elected official does, the kind of work that we're doing at the Capitol. And I think it makes a difference, the fact that we're able to speak in the moment on important issues that are affecting our communities and our nation as a whole. And so I really feel, a lot of gratitude as well to have the opportunity to talk about these things.
It's interesting. Did you ever see the Netflix series The Crown? Did you ever watch that? Yeah. So that you remind me of Queen Elizabeth, because her whole job was to not overreact, to be a stable, influence on that nation. That was her whole job. It was told to her by one of her secretaries at a young age, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff, a lot of crappy stuff going on at the Capitol, but you just come in and speak your truth and let it fly. You do not accuse people of anything, I've noticed, and you've been really, really a positive professional.
Well, thank you, Robert. I do my best.
Well,
I
you
do
do
my
a
best.
great job. You do a great job, because I'm telling you, the stuff that you have to go through sometimes, I would really personally have a problem holding my tongue and be a class act like you are right now.
It is hard to hold my tongue at times, and there are certain people I can vent to when I need to. And so you always have to have that sounding board somewhere where you can just all let it all out and let it go, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I do mean that as a great compliment too, because there's
Thank
a
you.
time and a place, and so
I'll have to practice my Queen Elizabeth wave,
yeah.
I guess. Do I
Well,
get that tiara that matches hers? What?
well, you were once Indigenous Day, weren't you? On one of the cars, being a Queen of Indigenous Day one year in St. Paul.
Not on a car. I did walk, but I was the I'm not the MC, but like I was the lead or whatever. I forget what they called it, but I got to wear the sash, and it was again a real honor to do that. So.
Yeah, I wonder who's that this year.
Hmm. You know,
Bob Blake was the same time as you were, the same year.
I
Both
think so.
were king and queen of parade.
Yeah.
Can't remember what that was either. But yeah, I got some selfies. That was cool. So things looking good for you. What do we have? 30 days or 32 days? How many days do we have until election?
Let's see. What is today? Today is the 7th. So we have a month and a day.
Wow.
So 30-ish days, 31 days or so till election day across the nation. So it's not just a Minnesota thing, but across the nation we have really important elections that are going to make a difference. We've seen what it's like when we get what we think are kind of conservative but manageable Republicans in office, and then they in turn change and overturn laws that have a really significant effect on our lives in each state, even though they might make a change in law or create a new law that we think we're immune to. That's not the case, and we saw that when they overturned Roe versus Wade. And they're going after ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, and that makes me very, very nervous. Fortunately, Minnesota has shored up a lot of its laws already. We have MIFA, Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act here in Minnesota, and we're leading in that kind of legislation. The family preservation. It runs in conjunction with the Indian Child Welfare Act, those laws, but it gives extra protections. And I know there are other states that are looking at that MIFA law legislation and using some of that, or maybe looking at how they can do that within their own state legislature. I am working also on ensuring that all the language in MIFA and other areas in our Health and Human Services and the judiciary are enforced, or if we need to change some of the verbiage or put in stronger language, hopefully increase some funding in different areas so that the judges and the social workers and the courts understand those laws. But that's another one that's under the gun, and I'm really nervous about that.
Yeah, it's an attack on Native sovereignty nationally. And so this is going to be a big test. So our Native people, we did really well this last election, last cycle, and I hope we do even better this time. I know there's a lot of big push as we did making voting a tradition, rock the vote, native style, those things that are still signing up brand new voters and people that haven't voted before. And our sovereignty depends on it. So really, I hope people take it serious.
Yeah, I was fortunate to go up and speak to a couple of our tribal councils, asking them to support Alan Roy, who is running for the Minnesota Senate. And I just have to tell you, Alan Roy is just knocking this campaign work out of the ballpark. He is so organized, a military guy himself. He's running it with military precision, and that's no lie. But one thing that he's really done an incredible job on is getting out the vote. So in Minnesota, we have these reservations that span the north half of the state, and often our folks live a long distance from the polls, and so they don't make it in to vote in person. Maybe they don't quite understand how to vote by mail. And so he has made a really concerted effort to transport folks to town so that they can vote, and I'm sure they can stop and get whatever they need in town. But, originally he had planned with his crew of volunteers to, transport at least 50 people a day, find out who needs a ride to the polls and get them in, get them home. And he's been quadrupling that daily, if not more, as the word gets out. And so we've been able to, he's been able to get extra dollars, extra donations to help pay the gas, help folks with transportation, help pay some of these volunteers that are putting in hours and hours and miles. And that's what it really takes is getting people now in the next 30 days to the polls. And early voting has started here in Minnesota. You can go to usually it's your local community center or a city hall and start voting now. And it's important that we vote because like you said, our sovereignty is on the line. Women's autonomy to make their own reproductive decisions is on the line. Health services is on the line. There's so much on the line, even though it might not appear. There are, subversive organizations and politicians that are just waiting for a non-democratic majority. And if that happens, we will be in big, big trouble.
Right. And I don't know if you saw Ken Burns's recent Holocaust in the United States documentary, but we've been always in the United States teetering on this. And I think the last president prior really pushed it over where, fascism and all these things, racism against the Jews and all those things are coming out again. And I remember when Trump was first voted in, it was like, hey, there was a hat out there that said, let's make racists afraid again. And that isn't the case right now. We need to really fight back with good. It is good over evil. And State Senator, thanks for coming on as always. Really, I will see you tomorrow, running around tomorrow. We'll be saying hi to each other, and keep up the great work you do for our people and for the great state of Minnesota.
No, Wopula Tonka, and you too. Thank you, Ogama and Robert. I always appreciate this.
Right on. All right. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and up next, we'll be talking a little bit about a little bit. So Ogama and I will be playing Truth or Dare or something. We'll be right back. Give us a call, 952-946-6205. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff. Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more. Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Bijou. I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Hey, this portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Well, welcome back. That was awesome talking to State Senator Mary Kunesh. And we are in the Civic Media Network, and we just want to give a shout out to everybody there. We have, what I like about when we're on Facebook and YouTube, Ogma, is that we have people commenting on what we're commenting on. And sometimes we have people bring up some things that are happening in other places, like Nate. Nate is a Ho-Chunk in Wisconsin, and I know Nate, and he does a lot of great work for the nation. And he posted up something, and I'm wondering if we could just talk about it for just a little bit. And Nate has also reached out to me with some people to contact about this specifically, but I think it would be good just to talk a little bit about this, Ogama.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who are watching us on social media, you can see Nate's comment, but Nate asked us to do a report on the Green Light Mining Initiative near the Eau Claire Dells in Marathon County, Wisconsin, and said that this is upstream from the Pachchinunk Ho-Chunk village. So I did pull out a little bit of information on that. So the mining company, as of just this week, has decided they're going to move ahead with plans to drill in northern Wisconsin. Greenlight Metals has submitted a plan to drill in Taylor County, Wisconsin, even though the company is facing opposition over plans to drill near Wausau. It's a Canadian mining company, Greenlight Metals, and they're planning to submit plans to drill for gold near Wausau, and then they're drilling for copper and gold in northern Wisconsin. So they want to conduct exploratory drilling of the Bend deposit at a 40-acre site owned by the U.S. Forest Service in Taylor County, Wisconsin. And they believe it could contain up to 40 million tons of copper and gold. The problem with that is that it has, so this company is saying that there's no wetlands and no waterways that exist within the drilling area, but we know as Indigenous people that just because there's not necessarily any water directly where they're mining does not mean that it does not affect the water table or the surrounding communities. So there is a wetland site there in which wood matting would need to be laid down for that. They're going to be drilling a lot of holes within the ground to conduct this mining, and the tribal communities up there, the Ho-Chunk communities, have said, this will affect a cultural site for us. This will affect one of our villages. And it kind of sounds like in everything that I'm was able to pull up just in the short amount of time, there's one mention on Wisconsin Public Radio that there are some Wisconsin tribes and residents who are working to prevent mining and strengthen environmental protections, but it doesn't mention who the tribes are, or what environmental protections people are wanting to strengthen. So again, this is one of those examples that we see really often in media, right, Robert? That the Indigenous perspective is just not told. It's simply kind of glossed over, like, oh well, the tribes aren't happy about it, but we're not going to tell you which tribes or exactly what's going on. Like
Well, it's crazy, Ogma, that and we're used to it, but it's still crazy that it's another scenario. A foreign company willing to mess up our wetlands and our water supply for their profit. And people don't see through that because they become sneaky investors in the community. I mean, when you couldn't watch here in Minnesota, a state high school basketball game or hockey game on TV without seeing Enbridge all over the place.
right,
Enbridge
yeah.
here in Minnesota spent the
Mhm.
record amount of money of anybody. It was like $6 million or $5 million on talking to our politicians, and
Right.
that's you got that ought to be a big red flag right there. And part of having this show, Ogama, we started because of the pipeline in Standing Rock. And here we are, 6 years later, talking about more pipelines,
Right,
more
exactly. Well,
drilling, more fracking.
and environmentally, this is really just a terrible idea. A lot of these ongoing kind of projects are kind of terrible ideas. So a lot of people who protest drilling um, will remind you, rightfully so, that regulations on drilling chemicals were rolled back in 2017, and then there was a repeal of the Prove It First law, meaning that they do not have to prove first before they start a project that they can do it safely, and they do not have to tell you what chemicals they are using to do these
Yeah.
projects. And that goes directly back to Standing Rock. It goes to Line 3 here in Minnesota. It goes to Line 5 in northern Wisconsin, and in Michigan, it goes into the Talon mine here in northern Minnesota, and ongoing mining efforts up in the Iron Range in northeastern Minnesota, all the way up through Duluth, and the pollution and the dangers that have come with that. It goes into the White Earth Nation, which is currently not approving of a Canadian railway merger that would cause 5 times more railway traffic happening in their communities. I mean,
I mean,
this is just Minnesota, Wisconsin, a little bit of Michigan. I mean, this isn't the entire nation, you know?
let's look at things here for a second. Okay, so we're in a drought. The whole country's in a drought. Look at in Colorado River. They're the lowest they've ever been. Look at just here in the Twin Cities. We got Minnehaha Falls. It's the falls aren't running for the first time in 100 years. I mean, and then we're playing games with water, and then
Mhm.
back up even more, Ogama. Just within the lifetime of this show, they've put water as a commodity in the stock market. Just think about that. Connect the dots backwards, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of these things are coming at the expense of Indigenous and BIPOC or POC
Always.
communities. Always. And just
When Wendy
here
talks
in the
about factory farms, when they're shooting all that feces out there for fertilizing and all that, that affects brown people all over the country, all over the world, and BIPOC people immensely. So it's just another. I mean, look what happened here during COVID. You remember in the beginning of COVID, a lot of minorities and BIPOC people were dying at first, and then they started getting vaccinated, and then white people started dying, and then it's all of a sudden like, well, everybody needs to be vaccinated. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just these subtle things that we've been watching closely here because, well, for me, I'm a political junkie now because we have this show. I listen to politics all the time and all the things that are going on. But regular people that are working and have families and are going to school, I guess I'm mentioning you, Ogma, won't have time to listen to all to be on top of all this stuff.
It's hard to remain on top of this amount of information, to remain aware of what's going on. But I would like to implore to anybody listening, especially if you're a non-BIPOC person and you want to be a good ally, don't always rely on the people of color in your life to know all of this for you and to educate you. You need to remember to do your own research and to take the time to be a strong ally with us and know about these issues and be working to use your voice to help us. That is something that we really need in Indian country. We need to use our own voices and we need our allies to stand up with us.
Yeah, really, that would have been a good way to end the show, but we still got 50 seconds.
Oh,
Hey,
that's
you could have dropped the mic right there on that one. That was good. Hey, Ogama, Peeny Gigi for all you do, and thank you for this nice little conversation at the end. Thank you to State Senator Mary Kunesh for stopping in. It's always a pleasure talking to Mary. She's for real, and she's there for the community. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio. We're still here. We are the 7th generation. Free Leonard Peltier now.
Hey, it's Patrick. Football season is building up, and so is the nastiness in your